Hi, this is John from Jet Set Citizen, and today I'm interviewing Warren and Betsy Talbot from Married with Luggage. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us, John.
So let's start. Just can you give a quick introduction for yourselves? Tell us about your site, maybe a little bit about your background before you started your travel lifestyle.
Sure, absolutely. We've been traveling now for about 2.5 years, and we left in 2010 after some health scares of some family members and friends.
Yeah, it was a kind of a wake-up call. We were approaching 40 and living our lives just like, people do, working on climbing the corporate ladder. And those really woke us up to the idea that life is short and we may not be able to do the big world travel that we wanted to do in our retirement if we kept eating and drinking like we were.
Yeah, originally the idea was just to travel for a year. And then as these things tend to happen, the progress started growing and we started being able to save more money. And when we left, the original intention was to leave for 5 years and just travel and just see the world.
Right.
And over the course of time, we started realizing that we loved this lifestyle and we wanted to figure out a way to keep it going.
And luckily, our readers helped us out with that because we had started a blog, marriedwithluggage.com, before we left. And people wanted to know how we navigated a life change, especially at that kind of critical age of 40, where you either need to commit and stick in with what you've been doing or change it up right then. And since people wanted to know how we did it and we had been documenting things all the way, it was just a natural progression for us to become writers and start publishing books.
And now the website focuses on helping people create an action plan for the life they crave. So we focus on helping others to put action behind their ideas and their dreams to make them happen.
All right. So let's go back a little bit before that. So what kind of work were you doing before you had these wake-up calls?
So I was working for Microsoft. I did company acquisitions for them.
And I was working as a consultant to women-owned businesses and just helping them get their businesses off the ground.
And so for that work, were you feeling fulfilled? Was it enjoyable? Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good job. I actually enjoyed my job. It was not, it wasn't the dream, but it was certainly a good job. And I came home happy and had really created it in a way that allowed me to have the flexibility that I wanted, the free time that I wanted. So I wasn't working crazy hours anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The things that all come with age as you become wiser, I think.
Well, and I think that's a big point in the process that we did. Lots of people thought that we were unhappy, and that's why we changed our lives to do all of this. But that's actually not true. We weren't living the dream we really had, but our lives weren't terrible. I mean, we had good jobs, we had great friends, we had a nice life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There was just something missing.
Yeah.
And so for the wake-up call for you, the wake-up call was that you didn't want to continue for another 40 years doing that, or you were missing out on something? What was the wake-up call?
Well, the wake-up call, my brother had a heart attack when he was 35 years old, and that was a really big shock to us, something completely unexpected. And then our good friend had this brain aneurysm when she was also in her mid-30s. And at the time, we were 37, and we thought, okay, maybe we don't have as much time to do all this stuff later as we thought. I think it's just that we assumed we would have time later. We could fit it all in. We just didn't have to do it right now. And that was really more the push than anything.
Yeah, we felt like we had to continue working another 20, 25 years on our career, save all this money, and then we would go and do the things that we truly loved and what we were passionate about. And what we figured out was that we may not have that time. There's no guarantees. So we needed to get out there immediately and start living the life that was most important to us.
Right.
And so are you crossing off items on your bucket list? Are you doing the things you most want to do?
Absolutely. I mean, I actually wouldn't say that we necessarily have a bucket list.
Right.
It's more like a feeling that we want to have in our lives every day. And that's one where we have a great relationship. We're seeing and exploring the world. We're meeting great people and we're growing individually. And I feel like that's what we have right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We have exactly the life that we want. We have tried some amazing things. We certainly have had some great adventures, both travel related and pushing ourselves outside our comfort zone. And that's a critical element anytime you're living the life that you want most, is being able to try new things.
So you travel was essential part of that? Could you have done this if you stayed home? You needed to travel and you needed to go to different places?
Yeah, it was part of our life. And so when we thought about what was most important to us, if you asked us individually, we would have always said travel. We enjoyed that so much. We got you get so much out of interacting with other cultures in terms of education, in terms of friendships and experiences you just cannot have. For us, staying at home, it's not for everybody, but it is certainly something that we enjoy.
But even before we started traveling, I mean, we moved every couple of years.
Right.
We probably changed jobs more frequently than other people. I mean, we're just curious, impatient kind of people. And I think this lifestyle fits us perfectly.
Yeah.
All right. So on your website, it said you took 25 months to prepare and get ready?
Yes.
What did that 25 minutes, what did you do for that 25 months?
Well, the first step, like day one, was all about just putting things in place that would make sure that our action plan, we could achieve it. And that meant things like deadlines.
Yes.
We needed a savings target, and we needed a plan for exactly what we were going to do. And that meant coming to terms with career emotionally and financially. It means coming in understanding what it was going to take to plan out an adventure like this. And then listing out all the decisions that we had to make. Are we going to sell the house? Or are we not? When are we going to tell when are we going to close her business? When am I going to tell my boss? So all of those things became part of a 25-month plan to get ready both financially and emotionally.
And it was also the small everyday things. And you really can't overstate the importance of the small everyday, because when you have a house full of crap to get rid of, you cannot wait until the last minute to do that. So we started selling things right away, donating, selling, downsizing. Warren is a master at Craigslist, which is an online want ads kind of a thing, kind of like Gumtree in the UK. And we really did a lot of work on that up front, and it made the process a lot easier.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't understand that there's the logistical aspects, which I enjoy working through, but I don't know that we were quite prepared for the emotional aspects it was going to take to walk away from a life that we enjoyed,
Right.
Even if we were running towards the thing that was most important in our lives. So we needed those 25 months to go through the emotions, to go through
Right.
the feelings we were having both as a couple and individually, as well as getting rid of things. It's saying goodbye to a part of your life, and you have to embrace that and get ready for it and give it time to work through you.
It's also becoming a beginner again, because at that stage you're kind of advanced in your career enough that you have, a certain level of, respect or admiration or whatever, and you're starting all over with something that beans about. And you have to be okay with becoming the beginner again and learning all that stuff all over and asking the stupid questions.
Yeah.
And so do you have a home base? Did you get rid of your house? You still have anything there?
Nothing. Everything we own, we carry with us. We have 2 backpacks and 2 computers, and that's pretty much all we live with. And it has helped us to hone our life, and we've realized that over time, the few things that we need, our life is filled with experiences and not items anymore.
Right.
And so your old friends and your old lifestyle, do you have a chance to meet up and go back home often, or do you kind of avoid that now?
Well, the U.S. is a very expensive destination for sure. But no, we actually just went back a few months ago. It was our first visit in 2 years. And we spent about 3 months visiting with our family and friends. And it was great to be able to reconnect with everyone. But I have to admit, we were itching to get back on the road.
Yeah. And the things what we figured out that we miss most are not the big events, not the big birthdays or the holidays with friends and family. It are those everyday moments, just those like Tuesday night getting together for pizza and a movie, Those are the things that we miss, and you can't recreate them on a visit. But like with everything, you make choices in life, and we had to make choices that we would rather have this life, which meant not being able to have those daily experiences.
But we really still have great experiences with people we've met all around the world. Right now we're renting a house in Mexico, and we have a woman visiting that we met in South America 2 years ago from Canada. And then we have friends that we met in the UK and Thailand last year who are also visiting. So we keep reconnecting with these people that we've met around the world. And it's amazing how often that happens when you live this lifestyle, because there are a lot of people living a somewhat similar lifestyle out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think not enough people understand how big of a movement this has become.
Yes.
It really is amazing. Like when we met in Thailand.
Yeah, in Thailand.
Right.
It was just like there's hundreds and hundreds of people that are doing the same kind of thing and traveling to these popular locations. So it's very cool. Can you give a little rundown on your travels? Where have you been and what have you done?
Sure.
Oh, well, we started out in South America and we spent quite a bit of time in Ecuador, which is a beautiful country with just about everything to offer. A little bit of time in Colombia, northern Peru. We did lots of great hikes. If you are an outdoors
Amazing hikes,
person,
yeah.
northern Peru is fantastic for that. Then we spent some time in Buenos Aires and Argentina before going all the way down to the tip of the earth.
Yeah, I went to Antarctica for a couple weeks and then took that same ship across the Atlantic up to England for almost 6 weeks. And then spent time in Europe, I think 3 or 4 months in Europe, maybe 5 months in Europe. And then popped over to Thailand where we met you, and we spent 6 months hanging out in Chiang Mai, writing and exploring the area.
Right. And then we took an overland journey from Thailand all the way, well, to actually
Portugal.
all the way to Miami.
To Miami, yeah, overland and sea without taking any trains. We spent 6 months. Any planes, yeah. Thank you. Traveling just by bus and by horse and camel
and train and boat and whatever. And it was a fantastic, fantastic journey.
Yeah, it has been wonderful. And now we're in Mexico enjoying time, a few months writing and working on some new projects.
So do you have time to work with all your travels?
It's funny, we go in these stages. So when we were doing our overland journey, which was 6 months, we did a lot of work beforehand, and we were kind of in maintenance mode as we were doing this journey because we were changing locations pretty quickly. And now that we're in Mexico for 6 months, we have some really big projects that we're working on. So I would say that we kind of go in we have a system where when we're traveling, we don't have to work as much. And then when we stay put, we really get a lot of work done.
Yeah, I think what happens is whenever you create a new life, anytime, you have to create a rhythm that works for you.
Right.
And after a couple of years, we found that 6 months in a place allowed us to dig in a little bit deeper to the culture, understand, try to start learning the language, as well as from a business perspective, it gave us an opportunity to work on new projects and to try new things out, as well as connect with new people. And that rhythm now of 6 months in one place and then 6 or 9 months of travel is wonderful for us.
Yeah, it really fits us great. And that's the thing. There's no one set answer to the way to live this life. And, you know, when people think that they have to continually travel or they want to be an expat in one area for a couple of years, I mean, all of it works. Whatever works for you works.
Yeah.
So when you say 6 or 9 months of travel, how often is that traveling? Is that like every week you're going to a different destination? What does that travel entail?
Yes,
I would
and
say
no.
it's probably, it depends on the scenarios. We like to house sit a lot, so we've house sat around the world. So it depends on those opportunities. We kind of let opportunities lead us in the right direction. And every year we have one big adventure, one big physical challenge that we do. So this year we'll be in Turkey for probably 5 or 6 weeks. We have a 300-mile hike along the coast of Turkey that we're going to do. So we'll plan our travels around that.
Yeah, we're going to start heading towards Turkey in July. So we'll be moving that way, but we don't really have a set plan. So we may stay in a place for a week, 2 weeks, a few days, I don't know, but we're just gradually making our way to Turkey.
The one thing we don't like and we figured out is we cannot maintain a schedule of changing every few days.
No.
That is really difficult. I know people that do it and I applaud them. But again, for us, it just doesn't work. So we like
to
at least
unpack.
a week. Yeah.
We like
as
to
much
unpack.
as much as possible. Yes.
Okay, can you tell us how you make money? What's your business?
We write books and we self-publish our books through Amazon and iTunes and Barnes & Noble. And we've currently written 3 books. And they all sell very well, and we have a regular income from that. And so our time and effort is spent on marketing and promoting the books that we have and creating the next book that will be published. They're all around creating an action plan for the life you crave, either in simplifying or working on your relationships or your finances or any of those topics that are going to help you move forward to get the dream you want, whether it's travel or not. A lot of people who follow us are not travelers. And this is the lifestyle that, I don't know, I feel like we get the most personal fulfillment from it, but we also get an actual livable income from it too.
Yeah, and it's what we could do. I don't know that we would have opened ourselves up to writing, even though what we write about is not travel related. It's about people going after their dreams, whatever they might be. The same type of steps. Anytime you step outside of the normal, quote unquote, normal path with a career and you go to work every day and you have a house and cars and kids, anytime you step out of that, finding your way is difficult. And so finding other people you can connect with and then figuring out what to do and what the right process is. So we write about that as much as possible through our website, through our books, and now through our podcast. The goal is to communicate and help people create the actions that they need.
All right. So why do you sell on Kindle rather than selling from your own site? A lot of people are saying that like Kindle publishing is bringing the price of books down and making it more difficult for authors to make a living. Have you found something different?
I disagree with that completely.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only thing that brings the price of books down is the individuals that decide to bring their price of their own books down.
Okay.
If you choose to price, you can choose to price your books at the price that you want to sell it at. And you have to make some decisions based upon the price, the revenue stream. But you still control your prices. And I don't think there's anything that Kindle does or that you do that is outside of your control. Mm-hmm. What there is there are a lot of books. There's a lot more competition. Mm-hmm. But that competition, there's a lot of crap that's out there. People can publish anything they want and start asking for money. But it just depends on what they're willing to pay. What we have found is that we continue to follow the old adage of marketing, which is we price for the value that we give, and that's what we focus on, and then we market accordingly. What Kindle gives us is a huge market that we could not tap into, no matter how big our audience base is. The opportunities with Kindle or with iTunes or with Barnes & Noble is that we can tap into a broader set of community. Mm-hmm. And as we get recommendations and things from others, that just expands to people we've never touched. We believe that it's more a function of bringing more audience members into our website, into our podcast, as well as our books through those avenues. We did initially start selling directly through our site.
Yes.
So we've done both. I will say that what happens when you sell off your own site, you can communicate to your own readers for a while, and that there's a really big spike initially for a higher profit margin, but it drops rather dramatically because you've already inundated that audience. And so what you can do now is to communicate through other sources. You can spend your time getting reviews and getting guest posts and on third-party sites in the pure marketing element, and then point them towards this area that kind of is self-fulfilling. And we have seen that consistently.
Right. And the deal with Amazon is also that the more popular your book becomes through reviews and through people who are purchasing it, the more Amazon itself will promote you. So that when you're shopping for something, our book will come up as a recommendation. These are people we would never be able to reach on our own, people who know nothing about our site, who may not be looking for anything travel related or anything at all. So we just find that it is a huge, huge market that we get exposed to, and it's a reliable income every month, unlike a lot of internet marketing based programs where you get really all your money within the first week or the first month. Now, that being said, I still think that there's a place for that in business. If you want to do courses, if you want to do those kinds of things, we're not saying don't sell that way. We're just saying if you have book length information that you want to sell,
we think it's a
great avenue.
It is, and it works for us, and that's why we went that path.
Yeah.
So can you give us some specifics? So when you did your first book and you sold it on your website, how much were you selling it for when you first brought it out?
We sold it for $29.99, and it was filled with videos and case studies, and we packaged a bunch of information into that book. And it was very nice. We sold very nicely for the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It did really well, and of course, at that price point, the majority of that revenue comes to us. Just the e-junkie fees that we had to pay for delivery.
Yeah. And it was great. But again, we had to focus on delivery, fulfillment. Anytime anyone had a question, my download link expired, my this, my that. I mean, there was a lot of hands-on work that we had to do that is not required at all with Amazon. That's totally hands-free for us.
Yeah, so we left it out there and sold it ourselves for about 4 months. But about 2 months in, we transitioned and started offering just the book on Kindle. And what we found was that so many people were interested in just the book. And so all the work we had done to put all the other content together was wonderful, but that wasn't what people were looking to get. And that taught us that by focusing on better content and the book itself, spending more time on the publication aspects, on formatting, on making it a really solid product, that helped drive even greater adoption of all of our products.
Well, part of me, part of me thinks that we were listening too much to how to do all of this stuff online, an internet-based marketing program, when we should have just been looking from an author perspective all this time. Now, that's true for us, but I think if you're doing how-tos, if you're doing, some of those more specific things, it still works really well to go the other way. But you can't be lulled in by what everyone else is doing. You have to really focus on what it is you want to do, what your target market is looking for, and not get caught up in all the extra bells and whistles that you think you need to do, because it just detracts from your message, and it keeps the right people from finding it, and you put in a lot of extra work that you don't need to do.
It's a great point. I mean, our audience happens to be people who are over 40, who have built a long career and are looking for something different.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily, the majority of them don't want to travel. They just want to do something different, start a business, or they want to create a different lifestyle. So those people also happen to be on Amazon already. That's where they consume their information. So by attracting and focusing on our audience and then delivering it in the way that they expect to be consuming it, we found that they're more comfortable, because a lot of them were sending us emails and saying, I'm not really comfortable sending my credit card information through this website I don't know anything about.
Right.
So we were getting a lot of that, whereas nobody seems to really be concerned about paying with it to Amazon.
Right.
So when you put your book on Amazon, did you lower the price, or is it still $30?
No, we lowered the price.
It's $9.99.
Yeah,
$9.99.
it's $9.99 now, and our first book was $9.99, and then we also have one that's $4.99, and then our third one is $9.99 as well. And that's about the right price point for the genre that we're in, for the nonfiction realm. If you look at all the books that are bought at the same time, or any of the ones that we are recommended when they look at it, they're in between $7.99 and $12.99.
Right.
So like the volume makes up for the fact that you're getting a third of the price.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. And plus just not having to worry about it. We can spend all our time on publicity and marketing.
Or travel.
Yeah, travel.
We don't have to actually do any of the fulfillment, which that's another consideration, is that if you set your life up to live a certain way, whether you're traveling every 2 days or you're settling down or whatever, you need your business to support that, or else why would you do it? I mean, if you're locking yourself into, being at your computer all day long, and that's what you just left at your corporate job. So that was also a big thing for us, was from the lifestyle perspective. We don't have to do any fulfillment. We don't have to do any billing. We get a check every month. It's great.
Yeah.
So, do you have any specific tactical advice? Like, do you give a free weekend of your downloads to get reviews or anything like that? Some of those tactics that I hear often for Kindle publishing.
We tried that early on. We saw different success for each of our books. If you go back, Amazon has changed their algorithm rather significantly with giving away the free books and where it benefits you and where it doesn't. So we have tried that. We don't see it as tremendously valuable anymore.
It was in the beginning, though.
It definitely was tremendously valuable. But now that with the changes, not so much. The most important thing is that marketing never stops.
Right.
Writing a book is about 35% of writing and publishing and getting it out there, and 65% of just pushing, just constantly communicating and finding new audiences. Because like anything else, your audience goes away. They get tired. They get overwhelmed with you telling them constantly what you have. So you have to go find new audiences. So the number one thing is to spend your time on pure marketing. So that means getting out and reaching new audiences through publicity, through the media, through third-party sites, and communicating your message as to what's important and finding new people that are your target market. We would not be wildly successful by pitching on a 20-year-old's website communicating to college students about how important it is to, party every week. That would not be a really good idea. So hyper focus on what your market is reading and what they want to consume information about.
And we've also had to go sort of a traditional route, even though it's non-traditional to publish the way that we are. But you have to go a little bit old school on this too, and realize that we're like the traditional authors of old. We need to have a press kit. We need to have a way for journalists to easily interview us and have sample questions and have headshots available and make their job really easy if they want to write about us. So we did take the time to create that, just like we would have if we were, an author 20 years ago.
Yeah, we think of ourselves first and foremost as authors. And as such, it's what does it take to promote your book? The tips, there are tips out there. There are a lot of information you can do, but you are the expert in your field. Define yourself as that expert and communicate it as broadly to as many channels as possible. That means you have to write every day something, and whether that is not just social media, but it is going out to the right social media. So the best tip I can have for anyone is, if you're using social media, don't use it as a blanket across all the different platforms.
Find out where your readers are.
Yeah, our readers don't use Twitter, right? And so we don't spend any time on Twitter.
Yeah.
And we do that specifically because we know where our audience is. Find out what tools they're using. If you have a high IT crowd, Google Plus may be a great thing for you, even though you may not understand it initially, but that's where the IT crowd is.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the news media and people are sitting in Twitter, and a lot of the people that are just looking to communicate and hang out with their friends, they're in Facebook. Find out what that is and devote your time to building that audience.
And it's also a long game. It's not like in traditional launches online where you're really focusing on a heavy presence and, all at once. You have 50 people writing about you on the same day, and you have this big launch strategy. It's really a long game, and you have to be in it for the long haul and really map out sort of an editorial calendar and a way you're going to approach this whole marketing thing over months. And, pitching to magazines that are months from coming out. It really takes a long view. But when you do, again, we have a reliable monthly income from this, and it's because of this strategy. So it's not easy. It's not an overnight success. But once you set it up, it's fairly easy to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, it's a good point. We always talk about this is not a lifestyle for everyone.
No.
We were talking about that earlier, is that this is something that there's a lot of effort that goes into it, and you have to set your life up, associate in the right way, because the most important thing in our life is to travel and to spend time together. This that we do is to make money and to spread our message that we believe so strongly in. But it's a priorities. We always are doing this in order to live the life that we have.
Absolutely.
So is Barnes & Noble a major platform for you, or is it kind of a secondary thing?
Definitely
it would
secondary.
be third. I would even put it as a third. I mean, iTunes has really been really nice. It's grown quite significantly over the last few months. Yeah, because we started off with Kindle and with CreateSpace, the print side of it. So it was all Amazon. And then we added iTunes and Barnes & Noble at the same time, back in December, I think. And it's been great. iTunes has really been good, but Barnes & Noble is just a coverage aspect.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's very many people are buying from that.
Yeah.
Do you see your books declining in sales, or are they pretty consistent once they're on Amazon?
They're pretty consistent. If you continue to follow up with them and you continue to do the marketing, we have one book that, we barely touch, and it sells all the time.
Consistently. It is consistent every single month. We can almost guess exactly how many we're going to sell.
Yeah.
But it comes down to your books will continue to sell for as much marketing as you do. That's it. If they're good books, if they have strong content, then your job is to constantly market it and keep it going, and that will keep the sales alive. It doesn't stay alive by itself. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, if you will.
Although there is a bit of a help with Amazon. As they see that, it definitely does help. You probably won't see a month go by where you don't sell anything. But definitely, if you want to keep it up to the level that you need for your income, then you have to be consistent with your marketing efforts.
Yeah.
So a big portion of it is what you guys are doing, not what Amazon is delivering to you.
I would say that it's hard to quantify what Amazon is doing, but it's really cool whenever, people will tell you, oh, I discovered your book through, I was buying this book or that book, or you see the list of, other people bought this book when they bought your book, and you think, oh, wow, that's some pretty good company. And you think, I don't know that we would ever be put in the same category as like a Chris Brogan book or something like that, just off of our own website. But here on Amazon, we are. And that gives you a lot more credibility that you may not get on your own.
Yeah, and I think there's also an aspect of the more you sell, because you're doing the marketing, it is an add-on effect. So if you sell 1,000 books in a month, just through your own efforts, you're going to sell another 1,500 books because you've increased the popularity of your book. It's risen up and more people see it on Amazon. So now you're going to sell 2,500 total that month just through the add-on process.
Yeah, Amazon is really paying attention to what the authors are doing, and they're in the book selling business. So if they see you doing a good job with your books, they're going to glom onto that so they can sell more.
Yeah, part of their algorithm. So understanding that algorithm is a little bit of it. So
yeah.
Do you have any advice for a new publisher that's going to write a book? Is there some specific tactics or specific things they should do to get a good launch on a book?
Start marketing it on day one. Before you even write the first word.
Correct.
Start blogging about it, putting it out on social media. Go where your audience is and start talking about what you're writing so that they're excited about it and they're invested in it from the beginning. And the day you launch is not the first time they've ever heard of it. That's a terrible idea.
Yeah, and it's not, launch is view it as a series of steps. Don't view it as a day. Mm-hmm. Launch should be several months long. It should actually include the day you launch. You have all your press and everything there, but you need people to see it repeatedly in order to buy your products. So you need a after launch day strategy, and you need to lay that out as to what you're doing. You need to make sure that you're targeting exactly the right people, and you're communicating what value the product has. So that's the traditional marketing problem, right. But you need to make sure that you have a schedule. And I think that for most authors, they spend the time writing and think that they just launch it into the world and are upset that it doesn't take off. And the strategy is you need to put together a schedule. I know that sounds very sad for the creatives out there, but it is something that has to be done. Put a schedule in place. I mean, we just started writing our 4th book, and we have a 1-year schedule from now as to what it will look like. And that's what we need. We need that in order to stay on track. We need that to make sure that we cover all the aspects that we're talking about and to start seeding the idea of what we're going to write about next. So if we write about, in our first book, we wrote about dreaming and going after your dreams. So we started a year before seeding that content on our website, in social media. We started becoming experts in that space and communicating that information via every channel we could.
Yes, and also I would say connecting with your colleagues, your peers, that's really important in terms of promoting your book and for getting the early reviews and for getting feedback on your draft. It's really important to vet the stuff that you're putting out there, especially if you're proclaiming yourself as an expert. You want to make sure that what you're saying is clear and understandable and relatable to the people that you're sending it out to. So if you're too scared to show your rough draft to someone, you're going to be in trouble, because that means your audience, your target audience, is going to get your rough draft as your product, and you don't want that.
Yeah.
So I would say definitely make the most of the relationships that you have and the connections that you've built and the trust and working with people in your sphere, and make the product as good as you can possibly make it.
Yeah, and I think one of the best tips that we could advise, it took us a while to get here, but the best thing we can do is find a harsh critic. Don't find the people who love you and love your words. Find the person who will find the problems, because that person is like gold to you. Don't be looking for praise, because there will be plenty of people, if your product is good, that will praise you. But find the person that will make you better and will push you to be better in your writing, in your communication, in your style, and in your grammar. You need that person with you through every step of the process to edit your book, as well as to give you feedback on your ideas so that you can make it and improve it.
Right.
So do you write what you think is in demand, or do you write what you want to write? Do you research on Amazon first?
That's
a really good question.
It's a Venn diagram, actually.
Well done. I'm so excited when you use Venn diagrams.
I'm the creative. I never use stuff like that. But really, it's the circle of what you're really good at and what other people are interested in hearing, and it's that sweet spot in the middle. So you don't usually get to write exactly what you want. Nobody wants to listen to my rant on everything the way I think the world should be. I mean, that's kind of ridiculous.
But each one of the subject areas are things that we are deeply passionate about. And so then it becomes, because we have multiple books around a general subject, there's a number of areas that we can take our words into. And we start writing, and as we start writing, we have a website that's, popular, so we can actually start vetting and bouncing ideas out there and seeing what resonates with people. And as it resonates, then we take that, and that becomes the seed that we begin looking at. And then we do the research. We go out and see who's written about it. Is it a saturated subject? Is it an interesting subject? Who buys these books? So there is research involved, absolutely.
And Amazon is also great for that kind of research, because there is so much information out there. You can see a book's rank. You can see, what kind of reviews it's getting. Right. And that's really good. But again, this is why you start marketing your book when you very first start writing it, because it may turn into something completely different than what you started with, based on the feedback you get from your target market.
Yeah, we started, as a good example, just as a brief case study, we started writing a book on fear in Thailand while we were there. And we wrote about 30,000 words of the book, and it just wasn't sticking with us. It wasn't it was words and it was interesting, but it wasn't really passion.
Boring.
Yeah, it was boring. We were not excited about it anymore. Betsy went and wrote I don't know, just like 5,000 word intro for a new concept and something she was passionate about. And I mean, it was one of those things where you read it and you almost tear up when you start reading it. That's when you know you're onto something new. So we threw the entire 30,000 words away and took the entire book in a different direction and moved from fear to talking about confidence for women. And that book has been is something that you feel very proud of when it's done.
Yeah.
So can you give us a little rundown of the bad things about a travel lifestyle? People glamorize this and say how great it is all the time. Can you talk about a little bit of some of the hardships, some of the things you miss, what you dislike about it?
I would say, overall, we really do love this lifestyle, but there are some adjustments that you have to make for sure.
Yeah.
I do miss, seeing my friends on a regular basis like I did before, but that's been replaced with meeting new people and having, learning how to develop relationships quickly and bringing together a social network quickly. I feel like we're really good at that. So something that is a disadvantage has turned into a new skill set.
Right. And you also, in the beginning, you're trying to figure out what your travel schedule is like, what your rhythms are. And I found that when we were moving, I was always feeling uncomfortable because I felt like we were always moving, so I was always tired. Just always changing the place that we were going to sleep. So what happens is that when you live the life that we had before, you don't worry about where you're going to sleep that night. You don't worry about where you're going to eat. When you live this lifestyle, every day is a series of decisions. What am I going to eat this day? Where am I going to stay? Possibly where am I going to go next? So there's all these additional decisions that are involved that sounds fun when you first start, right? When you're just thinking about it. But when you get into it, that level of decision, some days you just want someone to come up and say, here's what you're going to do for the next month. Be done, not worry about it. And I think that's something we had not anticipated when we got out on the road.
There's also the dun 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 relationship question.
Yes.
You have to learn to be with your mate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and often in a very small space.
Yeah, you guys have gone through it, I know, and you deal with the idea of how do you relate? How do you're going to have fights, and oftentimes everything that it used to you could kind of shove in the back of your life, they're exposed because you're under stress.
You have to deal with things right away. You can't walk away from them. You can't go to work. You can't go hang out with your friends. You're together.
You're often together in a single room. So the relationship and dealing with it is challenging, and you have to start talking about it early because fights build up way too quickly and they explode. And you end up fighting about something that really wasn't about the squeezing of the toothpaste in the middle. It was about the fact that you've been spending 6 weeks of changing locations every 2 days, and you're just stressed. And so you have to be ready to handle that. And not all relationships are ready for the amount of time you'll spend together.
Right. We've had to learn to fight fast.
Yeah. Yeah. We can fight. We know exactly what we're fighting about. We yell about it. We get it out of the way, and then we move on to the next thing, the makeup, which is honestly the only reason to really fight anyways. So.
Actually, one thing about the digital nomad lifestyle is that there's so many young travelers, like 21 and 22-year-olds, and it's like I know for me personally, it's really hard to relate to some of those guys because they want to go out to bars all the time and try to pick up girls and things. So as a married and a little more mature couple, I can definitely relate to the kind of things you're saying. It's kind of there's two different worlds out there. It's good to see that there's a little more mature kind of digital nomad group as well that's traveling the world. So
we've actually really lucked out in meeting people our age. We really, when you start looking for them, you can find them for sure.
Yeah, and I agree with you that it is. It's fun to hang out occasionally, but my body does not keep up like that anymore. And so for me, it's been great. Once again, we all find our rhythms, right? And we find what's most important to us, and we've been very happy with it. Sometimes it's fun because you get to interact with people with a very different age range and very different background, and so that's a lot of fun. But at the same time, connecting with people really happens when we find people that share similar lifestyles to us.
Yeah.
So you're going to keep publishing books, or do you have going to move into membership sites or something more community based, forum based? Is there a next step, or is being authors where you want to be?
Well, authors is our main foundation, but we do have some other things planned. Right now, we're hosting an informal artist retreat, and it's been really great for us. And it's sort of a testing ground for some actual virtual and live retreats that we want to do in the next year. So that's kind of our next step, I think. We still have in the back of our minds thinking about courses and things like that we can do. But I think our next big step is going to be the retreat.
Yeah, I would say that if you were to, when we write out our bios, it starts with authors. And that will probably always continue. Traveler is usually number 3 or 4. When we think about who we are as people, it's just the lifestyle we live, just like we used to live in a house. Now we live out of a backpack. But authors will always be a part of it. Books will always be a part of our story and will be the primary income driver. Whereas we want to get our message out. So it's just a vehicle. Whatever vehicles we can do to encourage others to follow their dreams, we want to do that and communicate that in the best way.
And that's really kind of the cool thing about this, is that we have these books, but from books, as you know, people all over the world use books to launch speaking careers, consulting. I mean, there are so many things that can come from books that I feel like anyone who's watching your show right now can start thinking about, okay, how can I use a book to launch whatever it is I want to do?
Right.
For us, the books are great. It allows us to have this lifestyle, and we can do the retreats and things like that. But anyone who's listening right now, books are a great foundation to go whatever way you want to go.
Yeah, they can make you, and they can communicate you as an expert in a specific subject area. And that is probably, whether you want to just sell books or you want to make a speaking career, it can do that.
Yeah, or consulting clients or whatever. It's really a giant business card.
Yes.
Would you go through the traditional publish route and try to get a large publisher to promote your book for you?
We've actually had talks with a traditional publisher, and because we already have such a big platform ourselves, it's not actually financially feasible for us to go that route right now.
We have not seen the value that we get. We make less money.
A lot less money.
For the same amount of work.
And it's a delayed amount of money. And as you know, in this lifestyle, we want to have a consistent income so that we can continue to travel. And in a traditional publishing world, our income would be greatly delayed. I mean, we would get royalty checks every 6 months, 1 year, starting 1 year after we had published our book.
After you get the advance, obviously. But I will say that, traditional publishing has to be taken into account when you think about what's most important to you. If your goal is to launch a speaking career, or your goal is to launch into a consulting arrangement, traditional publishers are absolutely the way to go, because the revenue from the book is secondary to the credibility that a traditional publisher gives you. It is valuable. If you are looking to sustain a lifestyle on the road for relatively small amount of money of what we live on, self-publishing is ideal. It gives us complete control. But at any point in time, if there's a self-publisher listening to this show and has a ridiculous amount of money they want to pay, we will happily have conversations. I don't want to shut down the discussion.
But that is a really good point, that we know several people who are self-published who have then been approached like us afterward. And it can be a very great arrangement for you. And it can be a great way if you are not able to get a traditional publishing deal in the beginning, and if you're unknown, you may not be able to. Self-publishing is still a great way to go, because you can be picked up by a traditional publisher. So it's not an either-or situation anymore.
Yeah, you have to make it a decision for yourself based upon where your priorities lie and what you want to get out of it.
And there are now traditionally published authors who are going the self-publishing route. I mean, Guy Kawasaki is a perfect example. The guy's written 10 or 12 books and been traditionally published, and his last 2 books have been self-published. So there, it's a sort of a changing market space now, and you can kind of morph it to the way you need it to work for you.
Correct.
Cool. So can you give a little rundown on your travel costs? Do you keep a rough tally?
We keep an exact tally.
Yeah, we publish. There's a website that we created a couple years ago called rtwexpenses.com. And we track every month exactly what we spent down to the dollar. And so we spend exactly, $25,000 a year. That's how much we spend, U.S. dollars a year in this travel.
Right.
And we have consistently done that the last 2 years, and we'll be on track again this year to do the exact same thing.
But you can see a breakdown by category and by country. So if you're interested in how we've been living all this time, you can check that out there.
And also how you can do it. I mean, that's the thing, is that you have to choose what style of living you want to have. We haven't stayed in a traditional hotel, if you will. We stayed one night in Amsterdam, I think, and that was the only traditional hotel we stayed in. And it was ridiculously, $75 is a lot, as you know, but you want to splurge every 2.5 years, I guess. So
yeah, we do a lot of house sitting. We do a lot of long-term rentals like the house we're in right now, which also saves us money as opposed to changing, every couple of nights. And so those are the kind of things that can change the cost for you. So when you look at that, you see our style of travel. Now,
Right.
There are going to be people who want to travel less frequently than us, or people who want to travel more frequently than us. So
Right.
it's a way to kind of gauge, okay, that's where Betsy and Warren are. I'm more like this, so my expenses will be greater or lesser.
if we had traveled just for a year at a faster pace, it would have cost more.
A lot more.
If we were willing to sleep in a hammock every night, we could do it for a lot less. As you know, your decisions based upon your speed and the style of travel, they control so much. But yeah, all the information is there. Feel free to, anybody that wants, they can get all the details.
And for house sitting, how did you get started in house sitting? It's kind of difficult to get your first reviews and find your first houses. Is there any house sitting advice you can offer?
Well, we actually started it locally before we left because we sold our house in May and we didn't leave until October. So we ended up renting a room from a friend. But then when everyone knew we were homeless at that point, as they would go on vacation, they would say, can you stay at our house, watch our dogs, water our plants, this or that. So we actually started doing it locally before we left. And that gave us our first few
they were
testimonials.
Friends and family.
Family.
And then when we signed up for Trusted House Sitters, we actually we used all them as our first reviews because it's the same process. So that gave us the credibility. I think it also helps if you have an outside personality, meaning that you have an online personality, that is a great way to build trust. People know you. They feel like they are more comfortable with you because you're communicating. So the best advice is when you're applying is apply as a human. Tell them about yourself. Get a connection to them personally so that they understand who they're renting to. If you're a couple, communicate how long you've been together and that you've had a house before and that you understand what is going to be concerning to them, which is taking care of their property or their pets.
Yeah, you think about what that person is looking for and not what you're looking for. If you say, I'm really looking for a great place to stay while I'm in London,
and looking to party all the time.
I'm so excited to party all the time and do this, they're probably not going to trust their place with you. But if you say, I realize, going away is tough on, being away from your pets. We love pets. We've had our own, that kind of a thing. You're reassuring that person that you're going to maintain their life while they're gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And any advice for people thinking of giving up their careers, traveling, or doing something different? Can you give some generic advice for people looking for a major life change?
I think the biggest thing is to reach out and talk to other people who've done it, because in your life, you may not know anybody personally who's done that. But if you go online, you can be fairly anonymous at the stage when you still want to be anonymous, and you can just get the scoop from people who are doing it. There are tons of forums out there, early retirement forums. It's not necessarily all about travel, but there are people who will tell you what it's really like, and that can really reassure you, I think.
Yeah, I think there's also there's the practical side of putting down the right steps. So making sure that you put a financial plan in place, put a plan if you're going to get rid of everything like we did, for example, put a plan that says exactly what you need to get rid of when, and gives you kind of I always get a lot more comfortable when I have a plan in front of me, when I have dates. So put a deadline out there and then a number that you want to save for. So then it becomes a savings plan, and I think we can all understand what it takes to save money. So putting a plan helps me to feel more comfortable, and has for most of the audience and most of the readers that we talk to.
The other thing I think is small risks. So small ways of bumping out your comfort zone, because when you're contemplating something like this, it's big. And if you think about going from overnight where you are right now to tomorrow, just traveling with no, that's really disconcerting. But if you do little things every day about, okay, well, I know we're not going to have TV when we're traveling, so we're just going to start only watching things that are online, and we're going to get rid of cable. I'm going to go ahead and go to the ethnic neighborhoods in my city, and I'm going to start eating at those restaurants, and I'm going to start trying to talk to the people who work there. Little things like that, constantly bumping out your comfort zone, will make the eventual move a lot easier than if you just try to, it's like ripping off a Band-Aid, it won't be so shocking.
And the last thing is, which is so important, find people that will support you. When you start telling people, tell them and ask them for help. Tell them there are going to be moments where you are going to struggle. You need their support. That emotional support is critical because we all had it. I'm sure you guys had it. I know we did, where there were just doubts, where we thought this is the stupidest thing we're doing. You need people to stand there and say, you know what? This is why you're doing it, reminding you why you're doing it and supporting you, even though they may not want to do it themselves, but supporting you as friends or as family.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Again, Betsy and Warren Talbot from Married with Luggage. Thank you for taking the time to answer all these questions in so much detail.
Thank you so much, John. Had a great time.
Yes, so please keep in touch. I hope we can meet up again. Maybe Motoko and I will be heading down to South America if you guys are going to be around later in the year. But sounds like you're heading to Turkey, though.
Yeah, we're heading somewhere. We don't know. You know what it's like. We got to be in Turkey by November.
I know we'll see you around.
No doubt.
All right. Thank you.